Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 169, I had the delight and pleasure to have Gemma Perkins on the podcast. She is a personal transformation facilitator. She inspires and empowers people to become their best selves. We talked about a number of things on the podcast today. Her early start as a teacher. We talked about, training, well-being, and leadership as well. And basically, all the other things which come together from that. She is a very interesting young lady and a joy to talk to. So please sit back, enjoy the podcast. Please don't forget, subscribe. It helps us out immensely. And have an awesome day. Enjoy the show. Yeah. Peace. Oh no. Oh. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 169, I am very privileged to have, honored to have Gemma Perkins. She is a personal transformation facilitator. She inspires and empowers people to become their best selves. How are you today, my lady?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, very happy to be here with your energy.
Oh, you are too kind. You are too kind. I think I'm going to start building a reputation. It's like, his energy. But I have to say, very happy to have you on today. I am curious. Now, how did you get started? How did you become the lady you are today? Let's go from the beginning. How did it? I woke up, I was born, and then no. How did it happen? How did you discover this?
Somewhat by accident, because my original plan was to become a teacher. So from the youngest time, I'm the oldest of four siblings, and my younger siblings had educational difficulties. They're on the autistic spectrum, which meant that there was a lot of discussions in our household about how we learn things, and we had play therapists come round to support my youngest brother. Mm-hmm. So from being about 8 years old, when I was on school holidays, I used to hang out with the play therapists and kind of be the teacher's assistant, and I loved it. So I got this plan to be a teacher, did my studies at college, kind of decided at university I'd study psychology, because that would help with the neurodiversity side of things as well as child development stuff. But while I was at college, I was very academic, and I was getting messages that, you should do volunteering, you should do extracurricular stuff. So I signed up for a leadership development program, kind of just to tick a box, but it turned out to really transform me, and I got so much out of it. And that's kind of what I do today. So I did become a teacher. I did my psychology degree. I had a year in schools as a teaching assistant. I then did my teaching degree, taught for probably just over a year before packing it in and deciding to start a business. So there's a little bit more to it than that, but actually I quite enjoy that it was by accident. I'd not studied business studies. I'd never set out to be an entrepreneur. But I found something that actually I decided I get more of a buzz out of this than the teaching. I'm going to do that, and took a leap.
No problem. Look, I'm sure from your younger siblings, when you went, oh yeah, just was the teacher's assistant. It's like, no, I think they were frame it in the realms of bullying and bossy, but that's
we still have those conversations. They're like, look, when will you stop trying to teach us and just be our sister?
And let me see, has that stopped yet, or are you still at it hard?
I'm not at it hard, but I do find it difficult to switch off. So there's definitely a boundary thing in there about where's the line between how much is it good to be helpful, and how much is it no, let them learn things at their pace, and they've got to make their own mistakes. And I'll be honest, I don't think anybody ever gets that right.
They're like, yes, look, let me just do this by myself. But the stairs, no, no, stop. Stop. Okay. It's like, why didn't you stop me? Come on.
Yeah.
Damn it. So, like, this is the thing. You were only in teaching for a year. I'm always curious about that because, look, the way it normally goes with teachers that I've met, like there's boundless enthusiasm in year one, just like, yeah, I'm gonna help these kids, yeah. Then like year 2 or 3, Ofsted starts taking its toll. It's like, and then there's that special child who can never be named, just in case parents know. And yeah, and then so around about 5 or 6, they're like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should be doing something else. Yeah. Like, was it a case of like, what was like the most fun aspects of teaching in a class?
Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong. I do still love teaching. And what I do now is a form of teaching. But it's teaching without the education system and the paperwork and the not nice bits. But what I did love and what I do still love in my other work is when you see those penny drop moments for somebody. I've worked I started out in primary, which is anywhere between ages kind of if they've got a nursery as well, anywhere between 3 and 11.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with all those age groups. And in my work now delivering training, I work multi-age as well. So you can be in a nursery working with somebody who's just learning to read and see between 1 week and the next that, oh, wow, now they know what this letter is. And now they feel really confident because they can see it everywhere. And you think, wow, the brain's amazing that we're programmed to be able to do that. And then with an older child, you might have a penny drop moment in a completely different way. So I remember teaching a series of religious education lessons.
Yeah.
Where a lot of teachers find RE a bit difficult. It's not their specialist subject usually. And we were doing a Venn diagram about religious festivals. And I remember one child we were doing a Venn diagram of what's similar and different about these two festivals. And one child had put in the crossover, throwing bread, and I feel like I'm going to get this wrong and I'm going to upset somebody, but I'll try and be as delicate as I can. Somebody from a Jewish tradition, I think, throws breadcrumbs into a stream.
Okay.
And I feel like somebody in the Buddhist tradition puts water on the Buddha. And I kind of said to this lad, okay, you put these things together. They are different things. Why have you put them in the same part of the Venn diagram? And he said, well, they're both about cleansing the soul, aren't they, miss? So they're the same. Yes, you've got it. This is amazing. Like you're 8 years old and you've seen that these are a symbolic representation of a spiritual element. And you just have a victory like that and think, yes, I've got through to somebody in a cool way. And I was like, great, we've done Judaism and Buddhism. Now go and do now do Hinduism and see if you can find another symbol of cleansing. He was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that.
I'm glad to see you're keeping it light right there. But yeah, it's like, it's like, yeah, doing a Venn diagram for like, yeah, religion. I think that's most really something which is quite easier when you're a kid rather than an adult, because you're like, hey, yeah, that can cross over here and this can cross over there, and no, that won't work because people have issues over here and there and everything like this.
Yeah.
Like, would you say, like, with those sort of aha moments with the young lad who's like, went, okay, great, yeah, it's about cleansing the soul, which is like fantastic. Like, do you get that a lot more from kids or adults?
I think it's I'm going to answer your question differently. It's different for age groups. I think with children, they're coming to something new for the first time. So it's a different kind of aha. It's, I didn't know a thing and now I do.
Yeah.
Whereas for an adult, I think adults have been in the world longer. They sort of know it, but aren't using it. And so the aha moments have a different quality. They're more about, oh, this is how I use this, or this is what it means for me. This is how it's coming across to other people. And so it's not so much teaching them a new thing, because maybe they've learned it all. One of the things I teach people on a regular basis is listening skills. And it's a pain to do, because you get a room full of adults and say, right, I'm going to teach you how to listen. They go, we've been listening for years. It's like, but have you? And, or, you can always learn to be better. And then when you do the activities and they have a conversation with a colleague or they go back and have a conversation with their partner or family and go, I listened in a different way. And I've just suddenly realized, I've had this aha moment that this is a game changer for my relationships. It's a different quality of aha to learning something the first time, but they're both still lovely. I get such a buzz out of any of those kind of aha moments.
Yeah, no, the reason why I asked that is because, like, you bring it up, yes, it's the first time a kid's discovering something, but like, this is the thing, that adults have to dig through a lot more stuff. Now, let's be honest, baggage, sometimes on quite a hard level. And when you've got that carrying all of that around with you, sometimes it's kind of hard to actually get to the sort of root cause, or basically see sometimes a simple solution, which has been there all along. But yeah, this is the reason why I had to ask, because too many adults trying to work your way through that.
Yeah, and it's a real fair point that actually adults are harder to reach, because children know that they don't know stuff. They'll say, I don't know everything, I need to go to school to learn. Whether they want to is a whole other ball game. But they're at least self-aware that they don't know everything. Whereas adults have a confidence that I know what I know. And so they're less aware of the grey areas. And there's so much in the universe that, of course, we don't know. Or even if we know, are we using it? Can we hone it? And adults can be a bit more resistant to that. But you just got to be clever about how you facilitate them. One of the things that I particularly like to do is what I call baseline activities, but in my playful way is just tricking people into showing me what they already do and don't know. So again, with listening, or one of my favorites is conflict resolution. If you get a load of adults in the room and say, imagine you're in a conflict, what would you do? Oh, yes, well, we'd listen to all the sides and we'd be non-judgmental and we'd do this and we'd do that. And, they know it in their head and they say that they could handle it. But actually, if you say, right, everybody's just met each other, we're going to play a team game as a bit of an icebreaker. They kind of go, oh, fair enough, icebreaker. And they play the game. And then they get into a conflict because it's a game with, like rules that don't quite work. and they have this conflict, and I, take notes, and then we say, right, we finished the game. Let's look at what happened there. What was this about? And this is a session on. And then, as soon as we reveal it's about conflict, okay, and how did you respond to that conflict? People kind of go, oh yeah, I played this, I tend to be confrontational, or I tend to withdraw, or, oh, I noticed that I found that word triggering. And so I started behaving in this way. And you say, okay, now we know exactly what you're like, in this situation, might be different in different conflicts. Now we know where you're at. Where would you like to be? And let me train you in how to, in whatever skills and knowledge will plug the gaps. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, fair enough, we need this training. Whereas if they walk into the room and they already say they're good, they've got no interest in listening to what I've got to offer them. So with adults, you have to work in a different way, whereas with children, you can still do conflict resolution with young people, different style, but they're more open to just, oh, tell me some stuff, because you're the adult and clearly you know things.
Basically, kids play on the principle of empty cup, adults have a full cup. Right. Yeah, one of the things I'm curious about, like, when you first started your career, in leadership, personal development and everything like this, you mentioned conflict resolution. Now, would you say when you first started, were people more reasonable when you first started, and now they've become a little bit more sort of confrontational as time's gone on through your career? Or is it just like, yeah, people are people at this present time?
Are you asking in terms of the people I work with, or are you looking at wider society?
I'm looking with the people you work with, like, because like wider society, yeah, that's that we can talk about that forever. It's like,
I don't think there's a significant difference. You see the same kind of archetypes repeating. So there are always people in a conflict who get wrapped up in their own status or their own emotions or the story they've told themselves. And you kind of see things come up over and over. They might manifest in slightly different ways as things have changed over time. So, you know, as technology changes, that can have an impact on conflict because people are distracted, or there's digital communications that have been misread into. But on the whole, the patterns of what causes conflict and how people respond seem a little, you know, they seem to have some consistency.
Yeah.
I don't tend to work with live conflicts. So I don't have clients come to me and say, we're in the middle of a massive argument, come sort it out. That's you know, mediation, that's something else. But what I do a lot of is, we're just starting, you know, we're building a new team, or we're starting a charity, or we've just got some new graduates. Can you teach these skills in a preventative way? And so maybe I wouldn't be seeing patterns in the same way as if I was working with people who are in the middle of a conflict. Pre-conflict, again, you can do it with the conflict games, and you see these archetypes, and you see people sometimes only starting from their own point of view, and then it takes a while to develop the empathy and go, oh, hold on, there is a middle ground. We can collaborate now that I understand your perspective, and you can kind of teach that process. So yeah, I'd say there's definitely regularity there, which in some ways is good, because that means that the way you can teach people to handle it stays regular also. But without getting too far down a rabbit hole, I do wonder if wider society is a bit more polarized. You know, everything seems to be yes or no, and they're forgetting about the middle grounds, which is difficult for conflict, because conflict resolution is about recognizing nuances in order to, you know, find the third way or collaborate.
Yeah, I think with regards to finding the third way with many things in society, such as politics and other like contentious issues which go on, is quite difficult. The reason why I asked that question is because, look, we are now entering the sort of big return. Like, some people, like, yes, back in, like, if they're working in a factory, they're back in that sort of realm, in that environment where they left 15 months ago, 16 months ago. It feels like so long. But like in offices now, there's sort of like the hybrid model for a lot of organizations. 2 days in, 3 days in, the rest of the time out. And I'm just wondering if you've had like started to see sort of signs where, okay, people have not been around each other for a long time, and basically how are they sort of like associating with each other, and like, yeah, conflict rising and being able to resolve that. Have you become a busier bunny because of this, or is it just a case of, yay, it just seems to be okay?
So conflict resolution is only one slice of what I do. I do loads of different things. So I've not just got eyes on that topic, but one thing I am seeing in regard to that is, so I've got a lot of connections to HR professionals, because you know, they're going to be the ones interested in training and development. And some people in that sphere are, again, very black and white of, what would you all like? Are you either all in, all out, all 3 days? And there's this tendency to get everybody to have a consensus, rather than appreciate that, well, you know, Claire might want this, but Steve wants that. And each employee is different, and they don't necessarily, certainly in bigger teams, they've not thought out how to consult people on an individual basis, because they're used to, you know, mass rollout or company-wide policy. And so what's happening, I don't think we're seeing the knock-on effect yet, but what that what that's going to lead to is certain individuals just kind of going, okay, well, my workplace has decided this, that doesn't work for me, I'll just quietly leave, or I'm not happy. People don't quite know how to challenge those decisions, and workplaces aren't always very good at consulting, because there's this view of leadership and business that okay, it's top down. I make the leader makes the decisions, the manager, and everybody kind of just gets on with it. So the places that can be more fluid and have those coaching consultations or discussions or democratic processes where people shape the company and co-create the working patterns, they're going to come out of this so much better, because when team members feel like their voice has been heard and they've contributed to whatever decisions it is, it boosts their sense of autonomy. They feel better, fulfilled and valued, and therefore they want to work harder, they're more committed. Whereas people whose opinions are just kind of glossed over and who are made to fit into, square peg in a round hole, crack on with it, this is what we do, they're going to end up being more likely to suffer stress, more likely to look elsewhere, or perhaps more likely to have those conflicts because their level of satisfaction is lower, and so it's going to be easier for them to dip below that line where where they might behave in challenging ways because their needs aren't being met.
Yeah.
But it's still very early days for the world of officers to be working that out.
No, I think it's very early days indeed. I think there's I think we're on the verge of a really big change, like one on offices and two on actual individuals themselves. Because when you said square pegs in round holes, I think there's a lot of people who were either round pegs in round holes and now going, no, wait, I think I'm a square, or I'm a triangle, or something more exotic, because they've had that sort of time to reflect, and in that reflection, their sort of world view has grown a little, and trying to resolve that is a difficult thing indeed. Have you do you think you be involved in helping people discover their sort of new paths along the way?
Yeah, I to some extent I have been, but I would really like to do more of it. So most of what I offered at the start of my business 7 years ago was team building, leadership development, conflict, public speaking.
Yeah.
And over time, I've always done that in a very holistic way, looking at the whole person, looking at personal relationships, and broadly what I call the spirit, not religious, but who are you, what's your purpose, what do you get meaning from? So I already did that kind of stuff, but lockdown really triggered a more concrete offering into well-being. And okay, lots of people are struggling, people have got time now, people are lost, or they're renegotiating their boundaries, their life values, but they don't know where to start. So I've spent a lot of time looking at what I've learned from psychology. There's an industry called positive psychology, which is all about, I guess for context, some psychology looks at fixing problems.
Yeah.
So you have depression, anxiety, multiple personality, whatever it is. How do we fix that? And that is really important and needed. But what if somebody's just average, doesn't have those things, but would like to be even happier and would like to look after themselves in such a way that they're not likely to get anything later down the line? And so positive psychology is, regardless of whether you've got a mental health problem, a challenge, or anything, let's just work on helping you to flourish as opposed to fixing the problem. And so there's a whole industry of studies, of tools, methods of people looking after themselves. And we see a lot of it at the moment in terms of meditation, mindfulness. Some of that is done really, really well. And some of it is done in in a way that's a little bit basic and maybe perpetuates myths. But I personally have really enjoyed over lockdown working with small groups in coaching settings on something called Tools for Happier Living.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been getting people to address things like, where do you get your meaning from life from? How do you look at building trusting relationships so you've got a support network? How do you build your self-esteem, look at your self-talk? And that's been really interesting because those people have then gone back to workplaces. You know, maybe they were on furlough and they've gone back, and some of them have gone back with a new zest for, yes, this is what I want to do, and now I know how to look after myself while I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And others have realized, I fell into this job, it's not for me, and they're starting to come up with a plan for how they do something that is more in line with their well-being and their values. And I think that's really important because they're lessons that we don't get in school. As a teacher myself, I know that there's not a lot of room in the curriculum to think about, why are we here, what do we want to do with our lives? It's more, how do you get to an exam and get a job? And that, it sounds like the same question, but it's really not the same question.
Yeah, no, I think with regards to sort of education, it's, how can I put it? I would say for God knows how long, it's just been sort of working to get through the test, and that's about it. With regards to sort of education, with going on to sort of greater fields of learning, sort of self-discovery, no. One of the things which always baffles me about education is why they don't give out a financial education, like learn this, learn that, because look, on a day-to-day basis, don't get me wrong, calculus might be important to you sometime in the future, but when you talk about, the thing which will most really like settle you down and be a real burden to you on a day-to-day basis, you see this little plastic card, with Visa, MasterCard or American Express, it will take you down hard if you don't pay attention to it. And they don't do that, which it surprises me. I don't know. So like with regards to a sort of curriculum, like, are you kind of like sort of like, why doesn't the educational system sort of like teach people to learn more by themselves rather than sort of like do the test?
It's a difficult one to answer because a lot of teachers share that frustration, and they're tearing their hairs out also asking that question. So there's definitely a top-down pressure, and there's enough top-down pressure that people with the best intentions go, well, that's just the way it is. So while I was getting my business off the ground, I was still supply teaching part-time, which was really useful because it meant I got to visit lots of different schools, see lots of different cultures, and still do teaching while I was getting going. And it's really interesting because some schools, you can tell that the whole school has bought into the importance of exams. And I'm only primary, so that this is the SATs, which are not a qualification that the child takes anywhere with them. They're really not that relevant compared to, say, a GCSE. But you see that in some schools, the entirety of year 6, the final year, is dedicated just to maths, English, grammar, and and then once we've done the SATs, we'll play rounders for a month, or and do art stuff. And it is worrying because somewhere the senior leadership of that school have decided that, well, if the school's going to look good in Ofsted's eyes, we need good SATs results. We don't want our teachers to get into trouble. We want to look good on these league tables. We want to do right by our children by giving them the best possible results. So we're going to push them hard. And there can be a whole range of reasons behind it. Sometimes you can get a vibe that it's just about the school's reputation. And other times you can get a vibe that, no, it's about, they really want the kids to do well, and they think that that's what doing well looks like, is passing the exam. And then you go into other schools where SATs aren't even mentioned, exams aren't mentioned, they're just busy learning. And then at the end of the year, we happen to do a test and it's fine. So there's so much variation between schools, and within, one teacher to another, there can be that variation. But it does make you wonder, somewhere somebody's decided that this is important enough that that schools are going to be inspected in a way that creates enough pressure that people are going to make decisions to teach to the test. And not enough people are really challenging that. I think actually over this last year or 18 months, where parents have been more involved in what work their children are doing because they're listening to the calls, they're getting the homework emailed to them, they're seeing, what is it my child's been taught all day, and this isn't, fun, engaging, useful. And so I think that, or at least I hope that sparks a conversation where parents are now saying, what's the purpose of education, and how do we get it to be more, useful?
I think that conversation will kick off with some parents, and I think it's a case of, I think with regards to whatever the great divide with after all of this with COVID and everything like that, which I think is still going to be about 3-5 years, and then we're going to see what the real sort of either benefits, damage, or whatever form it might take. I think it's going to be a case of there's going to be parents like going, hey, oh, wait a second, this makes no sense. Why are you teaching this? And as you say, or it's going to be like, there are going to be some parents, which I know, which are like, oh, thank God you're going back to school. Please get in. It's just a crazy, I think it's just a crazy time and challenge, because you know what, like, only if, like, how can I put it? Only if we had like some curriculum where you could be a sheepdog, just guiding people through. No, sheepdog didn't land with you. No.
Sorry, there was a slight delay on that. Was it phrased as a question or a statement there?
Well, like, basically, only if we could be a sheepdog. I was like referring to one of your courses. You actually got people to be a sheepdog.
Oh yeah, but that's a whole different thing, and that's not about. I see what you mean. Yeah. So I suppose. Yeah. So one of the fun games we play about the sheepdog is we get the participants to. We give them a communication challenge, and we say, right, you guys are all sheep. You've got one sheepdog. You've got 2 minutes to decide how you're going to communicate with each other. But the sheep, you can only make your appropriate animal noises. You've got to get these sheep who are blindfolded into that pen, work it out, go. And so it's not so much about, the analogy of the sheep and the sheepdog is that the sheep are placid and conform and just do as they're told. In this situation, the sheep go, oh, how are we going to work this out? And so they kind of say, right, well, let's have 1 woof for left and 2 woofs for right. And so that it's even though it's called the sheepdog trials, it's a very democratic, cohesive, quick communication game that tests problem solving and quick thinking and things. And it's always a very interesting one to kind of see, do you come up with a simple or a complex solution? Have you thought about the problem? Who takes charge? How do people respond? Do you remember all the instructions that you set out for yourself? So it's kind of it's a simple activity, but it gives you a lot to talk about afterwards. And in no way encourages participants to just quietly follow along, but it tends to be a very noisy and engaging game, and a lot of fun to see people, blindfolded running around going, bah, bah, I've forgotten what I'm supposed to do. So I'm a very big fan of getting adults to re-engage with their inner child, because one thing that I still carry with me from my primary education is that we learn through playing, through experience. And even though we're kind of trained to act grown up and, sit quietly, actually when we move our bodies, when we make different noises, when we role play, we learn about ourselves and we express ourselves in a different way that allows us to be our whole self. And so doing daft activities, although people roll their eyes, although they think they're not going to like it, they usually, I would say 90% of people really get into it, and the other 10% sort of, maybe quietly would rather have not done it, but they still learn something. So I can take those odds.
And you work them well. Woof woof. There you go. There you go. Yeah. With that, like with like that sort of play, would would you say how would you say it comes sometimes develops people's skills with regards to the realm of playing on a day-to-day basis?
So I think some things are a bit like a muscle. And so there's an analogy that you're either creative or you're not. And people will say, oh, I'm a really creative person, or oh, no, I'm not, I'm more of a thinker. But you're probably a thinker because you practice thinking. If you practice being creative, being expressive, playing, that muscle will grow and you'll be able to use it in other areas. And so many, I was going to say jobs, but not just jobs, parts of our personal life as well require us to be able to be a bit creative and playful. So even if you are a corporate manager in a very rigid environment, there's probably times when you sit down and have a brainstorming session as to how to solve a problem that requires creativity. So I think by encouraging people to just try things that are a little bit out of their comfort zone, it builds confidence, which is, you could argue that's a trait, you could argue it's a skill. It sort of develops the creativity. It gives people options for how to communicate, explore, express, and things like that. So I've found that when I'm doing things like, I worked with a group of people who were having like a strategy development day. And they were trying to build a whole community project, and they were getting really caught up in the nitty-gritty of different ideas. So we just put it down and we did like a creative recharge task where they just had to do as many drawings as possible around this theme or symbol, and they were supposed to try and get really, they started off quite boring and then they got loads of weird ideas. And by doing that, when we came back to the other task, even though the two were unrelated, it kind of freed up their thinking, and they came up with some ideas that they hadn't thought of the first time round, because they'd almost had a little stretch, as it were, like you do a warm-up before you go for a run. They'd done a bit of a warm-up and they could come to that with a fresh head. So although it's not the same as, okay, if I lift weights, I'm going to be better at lifting weights. It's okay if I practice being a little bit creative, maybe it will help me to be creative somewhere else in a different way, because I'm using that part of the brain.
No, indeed. Like, this is a thing. I think one of the major things a lot of people don't do these days is like put themselves in that place of discomfort. And I basically just, and many of us have got the comfy slippers on, smoking jacket, like piping my occasion. Not all the time, but that's another time. I'm watching Netflix. But yeah, that's what I think many people get caught up in, and the sort of like trying to push themselves to that next level. It doesn't even come into a thought or into their vocabulary. It's like, I'm too tired to do this. I'm just gonna leave it at that. For example, like there is this guy called Mark Rober. He's a YouTuber. Used to be working for NASA, and like his latest, he does these engineering things, and it's just like you like look at it and go, that is mental. Like one of his things was like, he set up a squirrel assault course to
oh wow.
So it's like
that's cool.
You kind of like right, so he had all of these squirrels, and they had to get to like Fort Nuts, basically. But it was like going, wow, that's amazing. But one of the things what really surprised me with a video he did just the other day, do you remember a game called Domino Rally where you set up dominoes and you let them all go?
Yeah.
Him and his team spent 2 years making the perfect domino laying machine. It lays down 300 dominoes at a time. Comes along.
Oh wow.
Lines up, boom. All I've got to simply say is that sort of engineering skill, like I'm like, no, why bother? why put yourself through it? But it's like, yeah, the constant sort of challenge, the sort of constant sort of like, yeah, through engineering, you can do this, through that. It might take a lot of brain power. It might be like long nights, and yeah, may want to make you scream at times. But when you do go through it, yeah, they lay down 100,000 dominoes, a big Mario picture, and yeah, they let it rip. And yeah, it was amazing. But I think not enough people, they don't need to obviously set up a fancy 300 like domino setting machine, but just the small challenges to like go, yeah, you know what? Instead of like taking a car, let me walk here. Instead of like, yeah, watching TV, let me read this. Or like, yeah, engage maybe in a slightly challenging conversation. People just need to know. Yeah,
it's a difficult one, because I do agree with you. I think that people get very settled in their comfort zone, and what I do talk to people about the idea of the comfort zone and the stretch zone, and one of the things we talk about is you need both. And there are some people who are overstretching themselves.
Yeah.
And they can feel, if they're self-aware, which not everybody is, you can feel it in your body. You're stressed, you're anxious, you're burnt out. That tells you maybe you do need an afternoon just watching Netflix to just relax and unwind and have that, you know, whatever is you time, do that. But the flip side, people who are in their comfort zone too much, you get lethargy, you feel stagnant, you get into a rut, you maybe develop sort of uncomfortable bad habits in there as well. So that's a sign you need to challenge yourself. And it's about both. And sometimes when I'm talking to people, they might say, I'm so stretched at work, I don't want to stretch myself when I get home. And you know, who am I to tell you? If across your day you're getting some stretch, some comfort, I can't tell you you must be stretching yourself in your personal life, because maybe that's not what's right for you now. So it's all nuanced. And I do think that, and again, maybe this is getting into the spheres of a bigger conversation, but there are individuals who are in a situation of working poverty where they're doing a lot of hours. And so they are overstretching either physically, mentally, or you have families now where everybody's working, where 50 years ago, one person was at home and the housework was shared. So society is built up in a way that does encourage people to put in more hours a piece. And that maybe is a contributor to some people not stretching themselves and challenging themselves. However, for others, it's very much just personal choice. And so I'm always very wary of, you know, blanketly stating anything. On the whole, I agree with you. We should be challenging ourselves. We should choose our passions and our niches and strive for mastery in the areas that interest us, whether it's engineering and domino rally, or whether it's just being a parent or baking excellent cakes. We should have something that engages us enough that we want to keep getting better at that, whilst knowing when to say, let's just chill out and rest so that I'm ready to get back to it.
Yeah. And when you said cake, my response would be, yes, please. Thank you. It's like, yes. But like with that, and like, this is the thing, I think it's when people start to go like, yeah, you know what? I'm missing something from my life. I really want something. I really wish I could do something else or anything like that. Then it's a case of like, okay, you're giving all the buying signals to like make that change. Go for it. And I think sometimes when you like give them all of that sort of option or free time, that moment of, how can I say, fear kicks in of the unknown. Because like, this is the thing, at one point in this country of ours, 80%, who knows, 80% of people did not have to go anywhere. 80% did not need to do anything. And if they went, oh, I got kids, I looked after them. Well, like, yeah, kids will be with you for a period of time, and then they'll drift off and do their own thing. It's about, yeah. But it's a case of, yeah, the fear kicked in, and overcoming that is a crazy thing. What would you say to someone with regards to that?
Again, depends on the person. I'm terrible. My answer to everything is often depends. But I think I would normally ask questions rather than tell. I'm a big advocate of coaching.
Yeah.
And so I would get people to think about what it is that's stopping them and name it, because we might see on the outside you're not making a change, and you could label that as fear, as laziness, as not having a know-how, but until that person really works out what it is, you need to know what the hurdle is before you can jump over it. And I think it's, in some ways, having been on the other side of the education system, I know that it doesn't prepare you to be spontaneous or to take risks. Everything about school is relatively safe. The teacher tells you what you have to learn. Everything's quite structured. And so when people are given free choice, you decide your career. Whoa, can somebody not point me in the direction? And maybe it's more high stakes as well, because people are thinking, if I get this wrong, I can't feed my family, I can't pay my mortgage. Or so if we lived in a world with universal basic income, or where there were more opportunities and grants for people to try new careers before going back to whatever they did before and things like that, maybe that would have an impact. Maybe it's individuals lacking self-esteem and confidence. Maybe they want a mentor to help them to get to whatever they want. And so I think if somebody's scared, the first thing to do is acknowledge and empathize that fear is normal. Yes, we are programmed not to like the unknown. It's an evolutionary thing, because the unknown could be where the tigers are and we don't want to be eaten and all that kind of stuff. But we've also come on a long way since then, and we have to learn how to critically think around the fear as to what is that fear telling me about myself, and am I weighing up the pros and cons of staying as I am versus trying something different? What's my safety net? Who's going to support me? And there's an awful lot to think about, and facilitating that thinking process with somebody can be very rewarding, because maybe they'll decide to stay where they are, but at least they'll be happy knowing they've thought it through, or maybe they'll decide to take a leap, feeling more confident that they've got a plan.
Yeah, because this is the thing. If anyone knows anything about leaping, it's definitely yourself. It's like you're like, oh, hey, it's like, hey, teacher, no, business owner, yeah, go for it. Like,
yeah,
I have to ask, like, when you first started your business, now, what was one of the sort of surprises for you for starting your business? I know this is like totally a different tact, because I'm just curious, because like I've speak to many different people regardless, and like some of them have like started their own business, but it's like I always like to know when they sort of went, hey, I'm doing this business, what was the sort of like, wow, I didn't see that coming, or like, I really wish I prepared for that.
In some ways, maybe I wasn't as surprised as you might expect, because I spent 6 months researching before I got going, and I'm very lucky. So I'm based in Sheffield, and our council has a like an entrepreneurship support service. So when I was thinking about leaving teaching, I said to them, I'm thinking of starting a business, and they said, yep, we've got all these workshops on how do you do your cash flow, your accounts, basic marketing, what to put on a website. So in some ways, I didn't go in blind. I never studied business formally, but I did as much preparation as I felt I needed to before going into it. But I think what surprised me was the amount of times people told me this is the way it has to be done. And that was very interesting, because I'm a bit of a nonconformist.
No, I can't tell. No, it's like
and so, yeah, sitting in meetings where people are, or workshops, and people say, oh yeah, and you have to do it this way. And with, I'm not impolite about it, but I would say, oh, why do people do it that way? But couldn't you do it this way? Oh, well, yeah, but nobody does. Yeah, but that wasn't the question. Could you? Oh, well, I suppose you could, but because nobody else does it that way, people might not take you seriously. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And so I thought that was, I enjoyed that though, because I feel like where I'm in the industry of what I call self-leadership, which is leading your own life effectively, I do come across people who are more of a leadership management, and they're very much, this is the way it has to be done. And I find that fascinating because, you know, lots of the questions that you've asked me, I've kind of said, oh, well, it depends. There's all these options. Whereas I find that leadership and management people will kind of say, okay, you've got this cash flow problem, or you've got this is how you deal with it. And they'll kind of lean towards, there's one method, that the one method I've been told is the way to go about it. And that fascinates me because life's not that simple. There's always multiple options. Maybe that is the right one in this case, but give the others time.
Yeah, like, because the freeform leadership, which I think you might be a champion of, and yes, institutional leadership where, yeah, it's much more rigid and like, yeah, conform some more. I think with regards to the sort of freeform leadership, it goes with more of like, yeah, if in the moment you need to do this, we need to go here. And like, I think it just leads to a certain more degree of flexibility. I think when it comes to institutional leadership, it works to a certain degree on a large scale, but when it does that, it comes at the cost sort of at creativity and sort of like, yeah, that freedom, which that sort of spontaneous spark might lead to something truly unique and special. So I would say I'm with you more with the like, yeah, freeform leadership rather than the sort of institutional leadership, because it ain't easy out there. And with regards to sort of many things what happen in life, like a global pandemic, yes. I find that the people who had the sort of more freeform leadership style have been able to adapt to this like change and basically move forward and like, yeah, in a lot better condition compared to the institutional leadership. Because yeah, many of those business leaders, people have fallen by the wayside. Yeah,
for sure. One of the things when I am purely training leadership rather than all the other soft skills, I talk to people about leadership styles, and we go through, you know, leadership's a relationship, and there's so many different ways you can have that relationship and that you can interact with the people you're leading. So I'll kind of go through different archetypes of, this is this style, this is when it's useful, this is another. And a question that I get asked a lot is, okay, so what's the best one? I'm like, okay, I'm glad you've asked me, but that's a trick question, because they're all good and bad in different situations. You know, if there's a fire right now in the room and I need to get you out safely, I'm going to command you. I'm going to tell you, this is the fire exit, this is how you get out safely. You know, we're not going to sit down and have a brainstorm about, okay, so we've got this fire, who's got ideas about the best way to approach it, and let's have a vote and let's take it to a committee, because we'd all be burned to death by then. But then you flip it, there's other times when you want to be setting a vision, there's other times where you want to be demonstrating and somebody copying, and so there's so many different ways to lead. And what I try to get across to all the people I'm working with is that actually good leadership is about having as many different tools in your toolbox as possible, so that in that moment, as you were freeform, you can say, I'm in this situation, what am I getting out the toolbox? What's going to help right now to achieve my goals, to look after the team, to have a long-term benefit, or to deal with the problem in the moment? If you've got one way of working, you're not going to be able to navigate those choices. And so actually flexibility and the emotional intelligence to kind of discern between the different options is what I focus on with my teams and groups.
Yeah, like, because like this must be a like the last sort of 16 months must have been fascinating for you. Really must have been, because like this is the thing, like with regards to the realms of leadership and the many forms it can take, you must have seen like people throw all kinds of leadership up against the wall in like in a quite well in the extreme circumstance.
Well, probably not as much as you think, because of the way I market what I do come across as a bit of a weird, touchy-feely hippie. You know, I'm going to do all that listening stuff, and so it means that the people who are really at the difficult end of the spectrum, they don't come to talk to me, so I don't get to see all of that. You know, I get a lot of people, the leaders and managers that knock on my door to say we want some training are the ones that have already got some self-awareness about them. So I don't get me wrong, I hear the stories from individuals who say, I want your well-being training because my boss is a challenge. So I hear it there, but I don't often deal with that, because in order to, you know, say, you know what, I'm going to really work on myself and my leadership, you need to have some starting point.
Yeah, I bet you there's been a couple of times you're like going, oh, I really want to be a fly on the wall, just like fucking, oh, just with a box, like bag of popcorn, just like, oh my god, it's kicking off.
But yeah, it's very fascinating, and I think there's that. Social media makes it interesting, because I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and you see, as you say, that it's not quite fly on the wall live, but you capture bits of it. And on the one hand, there's that, oh, this is entertaining to see, this is how somebody else lives. And then you kind of go, hold on a minute, this is somebody's life. And also, even when people are behaving in ways that are difficult or we disagree with, I do like to step back and wonder, where along the line did they learn to be that way? And how would we help that person to grow from this point? And that's a conversation that's not had enough with, you know, there are plenty of situations where we see in the news people who've done naughty, terrible, you know, all sorts of things that are problematic in whatever way you want to put a label on it. And we're very good at sort of jumping on it and saying that was wrong.
Yeah.
But the how would we help somebody? How would we educate them or create an environment where they feel like they don't need to be like that? And obviously, I'm being very general, and I'm trying to be very careful not to ruffle any feathers. But
I'm trying not to be cancelled, Miwa. Stop it.
But you know, there's so many difficult forms of behaviour out there, and often just punishing people and berating them does, you know, it's sometimes accountability obviously is important, but just telling somebody off and saying how you behaved is not helpful doesn't necessarily get them to grow past that. And that's a really interesting challenge in leadership management, but also in parenting, in friendship groups, in, you know, self-development.
I think a lot of this, like, I think one of the difficult things when it comes to leadership and the sort of development like this, especially if there is sort of like aspects of someone's personality they don't kind of like, then they don't want to actually hold up that mirror of accountability. And when they're not doing that, well, as you said, it can lead to some naughty behavior. We shall not keep it on that level. It's like, so yeah. And with that, because they're not holding up that accountability mirror to themselves, they can't actually, they're not going to actually grow as a leader in that sort of circuit, like in that sort of realm, or basically look to get that sort of health and well-being, what is most probably needed more so in their lives than anyone else. They're quick to judge others because, yeah, I don't need to look at myself. Look at that person over there. How you monster, you naughty person. No, I'm not naughty, but yeah.
And then another add-on to that, as I definitely agree with you, you have to be able to hold up the mirror. Whoever taught you to hold up that mirror? Where did you learn that? And we get taught to reread our essays and to check our maths equations, but there are very few times in education where you're taught to be really introspective. we hope that it's come from parenting, but not all parents know how to do it. So how can they teach their children? And so this circles back to education, really, as to what skills do we need in life, and are we building those into education? And I find that one of the things, I talked about the idea of playing the game at the beginning to help people realize how they're already doing.
Yeah.
That's about me facilitating them holding up the mirror in a way that's a little bit more safe and playful than just saying, think about your last conflict, how did it go, which is a bit raw and real for people.
Yeah.
Learning to be self-aware is a massively underrated skill, and it's not something that's, there is an industry about it, but it's kind of, although that's what I'm doing on a regular basis, that's not what I really sell to people. I'm selling you leadership skills, but actually I'm teaching you self-awareness. And there are other people out there doing the same thing. Coaches are kind of teaching self-awareness, but it's a side industry to your career. It's an add-on, it's CPD. It's not embedded in the whole education system. And that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I can see it. Well, I can see how it can be quite a major problem, and like this is the thing. Yeah, sometimes I don't want to think about it too much because that will challenge my self-awareness, but that's enough story. But yeah, but yeah, no, I can understand where you're coming from. Where I would say where it shouldn't be an add-on. It should be one of those sort of core fundamental things. Like it's a core fundamental belief, because when you're truly self-aware and you know what you want and where you should be going in life, it will lead you to that. It leads you to the realm of happiness, like being content that much quicker. And look, this is the thing. I would say you have been quite fortunate. Look, I don't know if you sat down when like you woke up one morning and went, I'm self-aware. It's like, but it like you found what you wanted quite early in life. And this is the thing, that sort of self-awareness, like you can have someone who can go like 90 years without knowing that, a lifetime, and not even seeing that sort of self-awareness. And yeah, if you're quite fortunate, yeah, you can get someone who's like 4 and go, yeah, this is me, and this is what I'm about. Don't mess with it because this is my life, sort of like, yeah, this is what I'm fundamentally about. Got a problem with that? Step away. And like, yeah, they'll come with a bit of attitude and like a little bit of a swagger. But yeah, I think that sort of core thing, it needs to be sort of more of a core thing. And I know there's going to be some people that I don't have time to do it, but I would simply say,
but what's the price of not doing it?
Yeah, precisely. Like you're sitting there like a yes.
I'm glad you said it, actually, because I do remind myself on a regular basis. I'm so privileged that I accidentally signed up for that leadership program when I was 16, because that's where I learned a lot of my self-awareness. And as you say, some people don't learn it till they're 90. I sometimes meet people who are my age and think, wow, the head start I had, very much by chance, but has really equipped me to know who I am, what I want in life, to tackle all sorts of different challenges, the normal challenges of daily life.
Yeah.
But had I not had that input and those years of volunteering and doing this youth program, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And that's why I love what I do, because I effectively give that same, hopefully, gift to other people, maybe a bit later in life, maybe just because their boss has paid me to come in and do it with them. But you've got to start somewhere, and it really is a treasure to work out who you are and what you want to be and what you want to do and how you want to be in your relationships. That I love it. I have to balance that with being frustrated that people don't do more of it and that society doesn't do it. But you know what? I'm doing my little bit to help more people get it, and that brings me that brings me my meaning in life.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And like, this is the thing. I think like getting the message out, getting that word out to people is a very important thing. I know you've done like a little bit of work on the whole YouTube, getting like putting out messages here and there. Like, do you think it's one of those things you would expand more into? Like, like I don't know which medium of social media is yours, like forte, as they say.
Yeah. So I did do the YouTube videos at the start of lockdown. I kind of looked at some of the content I would normally teach people and took out nuggets and did daily wellbeing videos. I find it much easier to be here and be interviewed by you than to produce my own videos. It's not my strong point. And part of being self-aware is knowing where your boundaries are. So for me, video editing and stuff, yeah, let's not go there. But another reason I stopped doing that on a more regular basis was 80 was enough. I did quite a few videos. And also, but I work two-way with people, and producing a video is helpful for people who are just sort of, okay, I want to have a quick listen. But a lot of the way I work with people requires them to put the work in themselves and to help, and I've done it myself where I've listened to a webinar and gone, that was interesting, and done nothing with it. Actually, self-development is you've got to, okay, I've listened to that. Now I'm going to think about it. I'm going to journal. I'm going to change my behavior. I'm going to come back and do it again. And so having a two-way process, having coaching or ongoing workshops or a program where I'm seeing the same people on a regular basis, that's what delivers the long-term change. So I decided that it was best for my business and best for delivering impact to focus more on real life interactions. So I occasionally put out videos, I blog on my website so that people can get a flavor and that they can take away some knowledge, but I highly doubt that people are implementing that. And so I encourage them to work with me so that I can support them in doing the behavioral change that goes with the knowledge.
I see. I never know. You might be doing an online course, over StreamYard. But Sandra.
Well, since the pandemic, I've had to change everything to be on Zoom.
Yeah.
And actually, it surprised me how well it's worked for some stuff. I can't do the sheepdog game with the blindfolds, but we can do some fun stuff with breakout rooms. We can do the self-reflection. You can read the body language, not as well as in the room, but having people online from different parts of the world, from very different contexts, actually adds a nice flavor to the whole self-development arena.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, it's a little bit more inclusive on Zoom because like this is the thing. Like for my day job, like working in sales and stuff, we have sales training, and when we were in the office and everything like this, it was, how can I say it, trying to get organized into different groups and stuff like this, there was a lot of time wasted, sort of like, okay, shuffle into the group. You're in groups of 4. Okay. Yeah. What are we doing? It's like, okay, focus. Okay. Yeah. Right. We're back. And like, there was a lot of that was sort of cut out when in Zoom. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to put you into side rooms and you're there. It's like, okay. You deal with the task and you carry on. So it was efficient on that side of things. But yeah, the body language and the sort of little like that personal interaction, it is missing. So it's like, yeah, if there was a way of doing like sort of like doing that instant separation and like, yeah, getting that more efficiently and in like face to face, maybe that would work better.
You'd be surprised face to face how high impact it is having an instrument. So I have a set of bells, and when I'm going, right, you're in that group, ding, people move a bit faster. So there's ways around it, sort of. But yeah, there's distinctive challenges to working with people online versus in the room. Each has its merits. But yeah, it's exciting because they've both got advantages as well, and maybe hybrid models, not hybrid as in half of the people are in the room and half online, because that's a nightmare. But it might well be, okay, we'll all meet in the room for the first bit, and then we'll follow up with some online workshops later to top up now that we've all bonded. There's some really exciting possibilities for team development on the horizon.
Yeah, I think with regards to like team development and sort of new things which are coming along, I would say, yeah, the reach for someone like yourself to like coach or like train people more has increased dramatically. And like this is the thing with that reach, it just means you're helping more people, and that is nothing that a net positive in my opinion. So you know what I mean? Like with that is when we sort of get more sort of normalized, because we had Freedom Day and everything like that. Like, do you think it's a case of you'll go into sort of like either speaking, or like will you write a book down the line? I'm just trying to figure out what your sort of next step is.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure a book is for me. What I like to do is read other people's books and go, you've got a great idea. How do I turn it into a game or an activity? So I have a really fun game where people are lions, buffaloes, and zebras that I invented after reading a paragraph from Simon Sinek on the circle of safety in leadership and teams. I was just like, how can I get people to form this safety circle? They're animals in the savannah. This is perfect. So I'm not sure I could write my own book, or maybe if it was, it would be a book of training games. But although I came from an academic thinky background, I don't really like sitting down to write. So maybe I'd have to dictate to somebody.
You can get away with that
in terms of
faster.
yeah. I think next steps really are, I mean, my business is about 7 years old now, and even though I talk to people about goal setting, I've never had a 5-10 year plan, all that kind of stuff, because I think there's a balance to be had between setting a goal and enjoying right now. And some people put too much weight on the goals and think I will be happy when that happens. And other people have no goals and therefore don't challenge. So I have a direction rather than a map, if that makes sense. And so I'd love to do more well-being work. That's what's interesting me at the moment, and I've got a big pile of books that I'm kind of working my way through in terms of how can I bolster the well-being offers that I currently have, invent new courses. I run a module for a project with a charity working with refugees, and that's got an interesting development life on it. So I'm sure I'll be putting lots of time and energy into that. And there's a bit of international work on the horizon, virtually and in person. So I feel like I don't quite need to plan the next step, because I've got fingers in enough pies that are naturally developing, that I'm enjoying the work, I'm being challenged. There is a next level without me having to go out looking for a next level.
Yes, Gemma, non-stop. I'm liking that, non-stop. Yeah, because like this is the thing. Yeah, when you went, oh no, like people put too much of a weight on the actual goal, and like the whole thing is the amount of people you see who achieve something great, and then the dread of the morning. They wake up that day after when they've achieved it, the celebrations have died down, then they sit. Then there's this long pause of what the hell do I do next? And then you start, that's when sometimes the wheels come off. Like I'm always about like sort of like, yes, you've got to have, it's better to have a goal where it can sort of evolve and grow with you. So it's not like, yes, there is a final destination. Well, there is a final destination. It's called death, and leave it at that. Like, but it's just like, yeah, it grows with you and keeps going. And I like the fact that you went, yes, I have a direction. It's like, okay, follow me, we're going this way.
One way I think about it as well. So what you were saying about the wheels coming off.
Yeah.
Stephen Covey talks a bit about that in his book, Principle-Centered Leadership. And he says how lots of people live their life by these compartments, such as I'm a husband, I'm a football player, I've got this hat. If you're a football player who gets an injury and can never play again, who are you? If you're a parent and then, you're looking after your children and then they're 18 and they leave home, how do you define yourself now? You don't literally stop being a parent, but as you were saying, the wheels come off when there's that big change. And so he says, really, you want to look at what are your values and principles that underlie all that, because they can be a constant to fall back on. And so for me, in a similar but slightly different way, I've got my life purpose that is I don't know, it's not nerdy, but that was the word that came to mind. I've sat and thought about what my purpose is, and for me it's to inspire and empower others to be their best selves. At the moment, I do that through training, but if I packed up the business to focus on being a mum, I would still be inspiring and empowering my children to be their best selves. That I could do a whole number of different things that would allow me to do that purpose. And so if the wheels fall off one venture, I can do something different. And that's quite exciting. And that means I don't need to worry too much about having one plan. If an opportunity comes up for me and it fits my values, it fits my mission, I'll take it on. And if it doesn't, then I won't. And so a lot of people are not used to that way of thinking. It is a bit weird. It means that you don't know what the future holds, but I find it quite liberating. And I'm sure other people out there, other listeners might want to experiment with it and see if it works for them.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't say it's weird, like liberating. I'll go with liberating. It's like, yeah. But yeah, I can just see it's like, yeah. How can I put it? Your purpose is a bit like water, like formless, but it adapts to like many different things. Can be ice, it can be steam, it can take any form or shape. There is nothing wrong with that. And as Bruce Lee says, be like water. It's a very true thing. It's a very true saying.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. You know what? Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Now, we're coming to that point. I have to ask, most probably one of the most intense questions at this moment in time. Well, there's two, actually. Okay. How I Met Your Mother. Yeah. Like, which is your favorite episode of How I Met Your Mother?
Oh, I thought you were gonna ask favorite character, favorite episode. There's too many.
This is the thing. I'll judge you from which episode you pick, because hey, there are a couple which are, what can I say, absolute classics. Peaches.
I'm not good at picking favorites in general, but I'm just trying to think about, there's moments that definitely make you laugh. So the episode where Barney sings his Everybody Loves a Soup song is a classic. That's really funny.
Yeah.
But I know there are moments that are more heartwarming. And what I really like about it compared to something like Friends, which I never got on with, is that you've got that balance between the really silly, some of the crude stuff, and the bits that are really making you think. So actually, I'm gonna go with, I don't know what episode it was in particular, but when Teddy's kind of opening up to Lily that he's deciding to move because his life's kind of doesn't feel like it's in the right direction and he wants to make that change. The kind of quality of their friendship and the vulnerability and that sense that it's a big moment, and that there's all sorts of different things at play there, which I quite enjoy. And it's quite moving. That I can't remember what else happens in the episode, but that's a key moment that I really like.
Yeah, like very nice, very nice. Yes, like if we're talking about heartfelt moments, like yes, the episode where like Robin's telling the story about her, like the kids, like they switch it. It's Robin like telling the story on the
Oh,
couch, and it was like yeah, and basically
yeah,
going through it all, and then the dark twist happens, and
yeah.
all I've
That's a
got to
good shout.
yeah, and all I've got to simply say is all of them with that sort of heartfelt moment, they were there for each other, and like you know what I mean, they supported, and like yeah, but like yeah, that's one, but like. But my funny, like one of the funniest ones is when the slap bet was born.
Oh, yeah. Or oh, at the wedding when it's the final slap thing and it's set up as the kind of the master become learning to be a slap master. That's a good one for being funny.
Yes. Now, so I'm gonna ask. This is not the final question. I've got one more after this. But who is your favorite character? I think I already know, but who is it?
I think it might be Lily.
Lily. Ah.
But what I like about it's funny, I saw something online that I'm totally going to steal, which was How I Met Your Mother tricks the audience into choosing whether you want to be a Ted or a Barney when it comes to relationships. But the real thing is that everybody's looking for a Marshall. And I like what Lily and Marshall have got as a dynamic. But I think what I like about her character is she's got that very playful, naughty side. She's got the education, but she's the mother of the group, and there's a lot of wisdom there. There's a lot of different aspects to her character that I think tie the group together in a nice way.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Lily and Marshall are the ideal. But like the thing with regards to Barney, he is the honest truth. Like, because like this is the thing, Ted, Ted Mosby. Oh yeah, no, no, it was all Barney. No, 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 no. Shut up, Ted. Shut up. Just like don't even talk anymore. Just shut up. Look, now it's like I'm right because he's the honest. Like when it comes to Barney, he's just pure and honest. Yeah, you might go, oh yeah, but he was like, oh, womanizing dog. No, but like Ted was much more of a womanizing dog in the worst way because oh yeah, it's like you were like you got the real sort of truth with Barney. But when he was truly sincere and like, you know what I mean, caring, there was like you knew he was like loved his friends like there was no other. When he told Lily to come back to New York when she was in San Francisco, and he was like, yes, that's like stop being stupid. Come on, you know, like you're miserable here. He's my and like I've been trying to steal every woman away from like Marshall because there's one who's gonna find out, and then it'll be Rahova. It's like yeah, yeah, and yeah, I've got to say I did like the one where they went on Wheel of Fortune and he won all the prizes, but that's another thing. Yeah, but now,
Go on
now,
then, what's your tough question?
okay. Oh, got to.
We've
Oh,
got to brace ourselves.
okay, right now. Okay, take one of your favorite films, right? You've got in your head.
Worried what you're going to ask me to do with it.
Okay, right now you're aware of the Muppets, Sesame Street, or, like yeah.
Oh
Now,
yes.
okay, now replace the whole cast from that film with the Muppets except one human actor. Which is your film and who's who?
Oh, I feel like I need a lot of post-it notes here to work this out.
Yeah, you see.
That's a cool question. I mean, gut reaction, favorite film, Hunger Games. But
Right.
as to, I don't know if any of the Muppets are nuanced enough to be Katniss. She's got this kind of, maybe, I mean, gender reversal, but it might have to be Kermit because Kermit's got this sense of duty, which would work for standing in for Prim. And Kermit would be wanting to please both sides of the Gail and Peter argument. Miss Piggy.
Oh, wait. Hello, you frozen? No, no.
You know,
You froze. Wait.
it's the names out
Oh, you keep freezing. Why? Why? No. There you go. Yep. Okay. Slight little technical hiccup there, but yeah, you're just getting into it. Like, yeah, Hunger Games with the Muppets. Yeah, you wanted to gender swap Kermit for one of the roles, and then yeah, you were about to go into Miss Piggy, and
Yeah.
then it cut out. Yeah.
So I Miss Piggy's got to be Effie Trinket. I don't know if you know the film, but she's the one who wears all the different wigs, and she's quite a dramatic character. So that'll lean into Miss Piggy quite nicely.
Okay. Yeah, like you know what? Like, all I've got to say, like while I was waiting patiently for the technical issues to pass, I was like, yeah, you have a little bit of a darkness within you, Gemma. A little bit of a darkness. Now, yeah.
What makes you say that?
Now, yeah, the Muppets, the Hunger Games, countless Muppets getting massacred, like going like fighting to the death. Just like yeah.
But you know, if you ask all your guests, depends what film they come up with. You could have Muppets Matrix, you could have Muppets Kill Bill. It's like, you know, you set up the question.
I know I did. And like, you know what? All I've got to say is there's countless fur and felt on your hands, young lady. Felt and fur.
So that's just got me thinking that Sam the Eagle would be good for President Snow, because he's got that kind of cold, calculating air about him. I reckon that would work if we're going down the evil route.
Okay. Yes, yeah. You're like, I must embrace this more. I liking it a lot.
Yeah. I mean, give me long enough, and I'll get the whole cast map. We'll bring in some really weird satellite characters.
Okay. I'm just curious. Rizzo the Rat, who would he be?
I'm just thinking of a weird mind. There's a little lad with curly hair he's not a speaking part, but he's too young really to be in the games. And they kind of look at him and go, he's sad. But I was just thinking, Rizzo's got this classic, I'm afraid of everything and I shouldn't be here, and how have I got caught up in this mess? So that would fit with his character quite nicely, I believe.
Okay, I'm liking it. Okay, fair enough. It's like, yeah, okay. Muppet Hunger Games. You know what? Yeah, it's worth it. I had Muppet.
I could watch that. I mean, they've done Muppet Treasure Island. That's a classic. Why not go through all the films and have Muppet versions of them?
No, Treasure Island. Yep. Christmas Carol. Yep. But like, you know what I mean? But like, yeah, I've heard of Muppet Matrix. Yeah, that's all cool. And like, yeah. But yeah, Muppet Hunger Games, you are a first. It's like you are a first. Like fur and felt.
You probably get a lower rating, you know, a 12A for that, because there wouldn't be the same gore involved.
No, there wouldn't be the same gore. Just like countless like groups of kids like watching it like this.
Oh, and you could have, because you said Sesame Street as well, you could have the count as Caesar, and you know when they do the canon at the end for counting the bodies, it could be one victor, two victors, and he could count the deaths.
No.
I feel like I've gotten way too into this now.
Just a bit. You're like, yes, and then we can do this. Look, if I see you with a website, this is how it will all work out.
Well, you know, you might get an email in a few days where I've done a casting map.
You know what? If you do that casting map, I'll bring you back on this show and like, okay, go through it in detail. That's
a niche form of podcast there, isn't it? There's a whole series of Muppet remakes of films. And somebody at the Jim Henson Company listening going like, which ones shall we make?
It's like, that's like, no, most of you just get a cease and desist from Disney. Like, no, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
You've just gone too far. Stop that right now. No, but come on, you know, it's fun. Which film would you choose? No, stop it. No, stop it. Oh, okay.
I mean, that must be what they do when they've done their remakes. They must sit around and go through the same process. But actually, this ties in a funny way to what we were saying earlier about creativity. Daft creative question, but it opens up interesting avenues. Flex those creative muscles. Make an all Muppet version of your favorite film. Why not?
Yeah, I think I've given you too much leeway. Yep. The Pandora box is open. It's like all the wonders and like all the things in the world are out there. I can't get the toothpaste back into the tube. Yeah, the genie is truly out of the bowl. Wow. Yeah, loving it. Now, like apart from bringing me that sort of disturbing joy and great like conversation today, I've got to say, yeah, thank you very much for coming on today. You have been an absolute superstar. Absolute superstar.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Can you tell the lovely people out there how they can get hold of you, how they can find you on those social webs?
So I'm mostly on LinkedIn. You can search for Gemma Perkins. But if you want to go to my website, it's thesli.co.uk, because the Self-Leadership Initiative is far too long to type. And if you want to find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, those kind of things, if you type @selfleadership1, that will throw me up on those sites.
Outstanding. Gemma, thank you for coming on today. Superstar, disturbing as well. Felt and fur on her hands, people. Felt and fur.
Oh, thank you for the interesting questions.
Oh, no worries at all. Happy to do it. And I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for sticking with us all the way up until the end of the show. I'd like to say stay well, stay safe, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic, be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. Have a great day, guys. Yes. Yep. Peace. And whoa, where are we at? We are